Welcome friends. Now as we see over here, we have understood the usage of mild steel bars and the HYSD bars. Now look at the HYSD bars. If you observe, they have some ribs on the bars over there. That's the difference between the mild steel bar, which is plain smooth, and the HYSD bar. Look at this, the HYSD bar, because of these grips, because of these projections, has a better grip, better bond in concrete. The mild steel bars, they are plain, they are smooth, and as I mentioned earlier, they are not having a very good grip on the concrete. Also, another thing what is important is the mild steel bar has the yield strength as 250 Newton per mm square. Now, as far as the HYSD bars are concerned, the yield strength ranges from 415 onwards up to 600. In fact, research is going on for 700 and plus. So, given this understanding that the HYSD bars have a better grip plus their strength resisting capacity, the load resisting capacity, their inherent strength to resist the external load is much higher, the HYSD bars are more popular than the mild steel bars. The mild steel bars, the number of bars required is more because its capacity is less, plus its bonding capacity is not that good. So that's why people prefer the or the engineers prefer the HYSD bars. Now further on, I would like to mention that with some advanced technology, we have something called as the TMT bars. Now TMT stands for thermomechanically treated. Okay, these are the bars. Okay, these are introduced to resist corrosion in steel. Now over here, their inner core is soft and ductile, whereas the exterior core contains extreme tensile strength. These provide higher strength. Here D stands for ductility. Please note the TMT bars in strength are similar to our HYSD bars. So their strength also ranges the same like 415, 500 and so on. But over here the capacity is or the treatment is given to the bar, so it is a better bar. Its inner core is soft, it is ductile, but outer core is very strong. Now the HYSD bars are produced by the mechanical twisting of the steel bars right after casting. No sooner they are cast, they are given a twist and we get the HYSD bars. Both hot rolled as well as cold worked HYSD bars are used as a better quality alternative to the mild steel bars, that is Fe250, but at times due to the process of mechanical twisting there may be some surface deformities leading to wear and tear of the HYSD bars. Now this was a big problem for the engineers. This was a big problem for the construction industry. Now this led to the development of TMT bars. Now TMT bars are high strength steel bars produced from steel with low carbon content by the quenching. Quenching means rapid cooling of the surface layer of the bar. The rapid cooling results in changes in pressure of the material and thereby the crystal structure of the surface layer is changed, that is of the bar. It turns the surface layer of the bar into martensite. Martensite is a very hard and brittle solid solution of carbon in iron, that is the main constituent of hardened steel, and the intermediate layer is bainite. Now bainite is a mixture of iron and iron carbide produced when austenite is transformed at temperatures very high, 125 to 550 degrees centigrade, and it has a tough but ductile ferrite and pearlite core. This makes TMT bars highly durable. The TMT bars are better at withstanding torsional stress, making them better corrosion resistant compared to lower grade bars. So you can see over here in the middle photograph, the TMT bars, the profile looks similar to the FE415 and so on. And on the right hand side, you can see the cross section, the tempered martensite, the ferrite pearlite core, which has been seen over there, and then the nominal sizes, which are similar to the HYSD bar, are available in this. Going further, from the steel, we are going to another type of concrete, that is pre-stressed concrete. The concrete in which the internal compressive stresses are generated so as to nullify or reduce the tension produced in the concrete due to loading is called as pre-stressed concrete. Now we all know that if we have a simply supported beam, due to loading, at the bottom there is tension and at the top there is compression. Concrete is weak in tension, that's why we have to reinforce it with steel. Now over here in pre-stressing, what is done is the bottom portion itself, if I compress it on loading or due to loading or when I load it, what will happen? There is already compression introduced in that. Because of the loading, it will try to bend. So maximum at the bottom, the stress may come to zero. It may never be tensile. So in order to introduce this compressive stress before loading, the process which is done is called as pre-stressing, and the concrete which we get is pre-stressed concrete. So what we do is, the portion which is supposed to be in tension, we put compressive force over there so that when the tension would come, that tension will get nullified and finally the concrete itself will be able to take the load. Or the concrete itself is good in compression. Now because it is compressed, crack development also would be reduced. In order to do this, the members which would be subject to tension during the loading have high strength tendons inbuilt, which are subject to tensile strength imposed by special pre-tensioning equipment. Generally, the high strength steel may be wires or bars or strands, which are generally achieved by marginally increasing the carbon content in the steel. Increasing the carbon content will increase the strength as compared to the mild steel. Now we are referring to IS 1343 for this particular pre-stressed concrete. In this, clause 5.6.1.1 states that the pre-stressing steel shall be any one of the following: plain hard drawn steel wires conforming to IS 1785 part 1, or indented wire conforming to IS 6003, or high tensile steel bars conforming to IS 2090, or uncoated stress relieved strand conforming to IS 6006, or it can be uncoated stress relieved low relaxation 7 ply strand conforming to IS 14268. Now any of these things can be used in order to have pre-stressed concrete. Primarily, we know that there are two methods of pre-stressing. In order to achieve pre-stressed concrete, we have two methods. First one, pre-tensioning. Second one, post-tensioning. Over here in the pictures, you can see the strands. You can see how they are together. They are forming a cable. So that's how the reinforcement is used in pre-stressed concrete. Now, pre-tensioning, one of the methods of pre-stressing. Pre-tensioning is the process of stretching high strength steel called tendons to a predetermined value between two anchorages before undertaking the process of placing the concrete. So even before placing the concrete, the steel is stretched. Thus, the concrete after placement gets hardened and the tendons get bonded to the concrete throughout its length. Because the steel is already there inside, it gets hardened, it gets bonded throughout the length. The tendons are then released by cutting them at the anchorages. Remember, these tendons were stretched, they were pulled, they are totally under tensile stress. The tensile stress induced in the tendons make them regain their original strength by shortening, and thus in the process transfer through bond a compressive stress to the concrete. So that's the process. So if you can see over here, the anchorages have been shown on top, and down it has been shown how the concrete is cast. The wires have been pulled first at the anchorages, the stress has been put in the wires, then the beam is cast. After the beam has gained sufficient strength, these wires will be cut, so the stress in the wire will be transferred to the concrete, and the concrete will be fully in compression. Coming to post tensioning. Post tensioning is a process of pre-stressing in which, after the cast concrete has attained sufficient strength, the tendons are stretched. Remember, in post tensioning, after the concrete has gained the strength, the tendons are stretched. They are not stretched before. And at each end, the tendons are anchored to the concrete section to withstand the pre-stress force. So the anchoring is done afterwards, and the stretching is also done afterwards. Generally, post-tensioning process is performed by two main operations. First, stretching or pulling the steel wires or strands by hydraulic jacks against the bearing ends of the member, and second, replacing the hydraulic jacks by permanent anchorages at the ends of the members, and thus holds the steel strands in tension. By doing so, compression is induced in the concrete. So over here you can see the pipe being laid. The pipe is laid. After that, on the left hand side, you can see the cage, the reinforcement cage. The pipe has been put inside. Now the full concreting will be done, but the cables which run through the pipe, they will not come in contact with the concrete. The stretching will be done later, which you see on the right hand side above. There's a small bridge deck. You see that anchorages have been put later and the stretching has been done. Now the most important part is the load transfer. This is the most important thing for any civil engineer. How does the load gets transferred? The design of a structure begins with the great challenge in deciding the most suitable structural system for a structure. The design primarily comprises of the arrangement of horizontal components such as beams, floors, and roofs to transfer the load to the vertical components such as columns, walls, and foundations, which are needed to support the vertical or gravity loads. Apart from this, the selection of a proper structural system to resist the lateral loads which act horizontally, such as wind loads, seismic loads, etc., also challenge the structural engineer in deciding the structural system. The structural engineer has to judiciously decide, considering the overall economy and functionality of the structure. Many a times, architectural considerations such as aesthetics also play a pivotal role in selection of the structural system. We cannot be having a fixed system in mind thinking that we are going to use only this system, because we have to look at the architecture, we have to look at the plan, and then we have to look at the functionality, because what may be there in my mind may not be of any use over there. So we have to consider all these things and then only decide what will be my structural system. The load may get transferred through the structure in any of the following load paths, that is, the gravity load path or the lateral load path. We have two load paths. One is the gravity load path and second one is the lateral load path. Now what is the gravity load path? Gravity load path in simple words is the flow is vertical. The flow, the load transfer occurs due to gravity from top to down. So gravity load path is the vertical load acting on the building which gets transferred from one member to the other. Now we can be having two types of system in this gravity load path. We can either have frame structure or we can have load bearing structure. I am very sure in building construction we have already come in contact or we have already come to familiar with these two terms, that is framed structure and a load bearing structure. Now both these structures, frame structure as well as load bearing structure, allow the loads to flow vertically from top to down.